Welcome back to the Cognitive Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Ray, high performance coach, speaker, and author of The Cognitive Athletes. We are now in week 9 of this training cycle. Over the past couple of episodes, we've talked about stress and decision fatigue, how modern workplaces are a constant load on the brain. But today, we are going to talk about something that most professionals completely overlook: recovery. Not as time off, or not as something you earn at the end of a week, but as a skill. Because high performers don't just train performance, they train their ability to recover between it. Let's dive into it. Let me ask you something. When do you actually recover during your workday? Not at the weekend, not on holiday, during the day. Most people don't have an answer because recovery in most people's workplaces is seen as stopping, slowing down, or doing nothing. And in high performance environments, that can feel uncomfortable. So what do we do instead? We push through. Back-to-back meetings, task to task, decisions on top of decisions. And we tell ourselves, hey, we'll recover later. But the problem is, the brain doesn't work like that. If you look at sport, recovery is built into the system. Athletes don't just train hard, they recover deliberately, between sets, between sessions, and between competitions. They understand something very simple. Stress creates the stimulus. Recovery creates the adaptation. Without recovery, there is no improvement, just fatigue. Now, compare that to most work environments with back-to-back meetings, constant interruptions, and no space between tasks. The expectation is continuous output. But what you actually get is something very different: accumulated fatigue. And over time, that shows up as slower thinking, poor decisions, reduced creativity, and loads more stress. And it isn't because people aren't capable, but it's because they're never giving their brain the chance to reset. So let's redefine this. Recovery is not the absence of work. It's the regulation of your nervous system. It's the ability to move from pressure, focus, and demand back to calm, clarity, and readiness, and then re-engage all over again. That transition is what most people are missing. This is where micro recovery comes in. Short, intentional rests during the day, not long breaks, just small moments between efforts. Things like stepping away from your screen, going for a walk, looking outside, taking a few slow breaths. Most important, finishing one task and pausing before the next. Individually, it doesn't seem like much, but over a day, they create space, and that space allows the brain to recover capacity. Let me give you a real-world example from a client I've been working with. They had to deliver a performance conversation to a team member, not one of those quick chats, a proper honest conversation about standards, expectations, and behaviors. Now, if you've ever had one of those conversations, you know it takes a lot out of you because you are managing emotions, you're choosing your words carefully, you're trying to stay as present as you can, you're making decisions in real time. It's cognitively and emotionally demanding. The conversation finished, and within a couple of minutes, they were straight into the next meeting. No pause, no reset, and no recovery. And by the time they got to the next meeting, they weren't operating at their best. And it's not because they weren't capable, but because they were still carrying the load from the previous conversation. So we made one simple change. After any high-intensity conversation like that, they took 15 minutes. And it wasn't to check emails or jump onto another task, but to deliberately recover. I asked them to go for a short walk outside to let their nervous system settle a bit. And the result? They noticed almost immediately that they showed up to the next meeting with clarity instead of carryover. They were more present, they were more composed, and they made better decisions. It was the same person with the same capability, but in a different state. What's the point? That 15 minutes didn't reduce performance, it actually protected it, because recovery isn't lost time, it's what allows you to show up properly for what comes next. Now, let's put all of this into a bunch of actions. I have a 3-step checklist so you can train your recovery. Number 1, put a gap between meetings. Make this non-negotiable. Open your calendar and create a rule. No back-to-back meetings. Add 5 or 10 minutes between every meeting. That time is not for emails or cramming in one last thing. It's for resetting your state before the next conversation. You can go into Outlook and create that rule. Rather than having 30-minute meetings, which is the default, you can change that to 25 minutes and then use that 5 minutes to do what I've just talked about. Number 2, schedule one deliberate reset block. Pick one point in your day, ideally after your most demanding work. Block 10 to 15 minutes in your calendar. Label it something like reset. During that time, I want you to leave your desk. Go outside, do some exercise, no phones, no input. This is not a break. This is performance recovery. And finally, number 3, close every high intensity moment properly. After anything cognitively or emotionally demanding like a presentation, a difficult conversation, or a big decision, do this straight after. Write down the next action. Take 3 slow breaths, and I want you to stand up and step away from your desk. This takes less than a minute, but it stops you carrying that load into your next task. When you start doing this, something changes. You don't just feel better, you perform better in the next moment because you are no longer carrying the last task into this next one. All right, let's round this up. Most people move through their day without ever resetting. They go from one task to the next, one meeting to the next, one conversation to the next, and they carry everything with them. The stress, the decisions, the emotions, and over time, that builds into fatigue. But high performers do something different. They reset between efforts, not at the end of the day, not on holiday, in the middle of the day, after the meeting, after the conversation, or before the next big decision. And it's a small thing. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or sometimes even less, but it gives them something most people don't have, a clean slate. Clarity instead of carryover, presence instead of pressure. And that's the difference. There's no more effort, no more hours required, just the ability to show up again and again at your best. Performance isn't built in the big moments. It's built in how you recover between them. There we go, another episode in the bag. As we start to wrap up this training cycle, we've got one more episode to go. Then we'll take a short break, reset, and get ready for the next training cycle. If this episode resonated with you, hit follow or subscribe. It really helps grow the podcast and get it in front of the people that need it the most. And when you are listening, if someone comes to mind, someone who's constantly under pressure or always on the go, share it with them. It will make a difference. And I have one final thought. This is the shift most people miss. Recovery isn't something you do when you've got time. It's a performance tool you can use every single day. And people who use it well, they are the ones who keep showing up at their best every day. I'll see you next time.